Universal Studios, it's Disney's rowdier neighbor. The perfect place for thrill seekers to come when the teacups aren't cutting it for wild rides anymore. And with wild rides come some crazy and disturbing incidents. Here are some totally messed up things that happened at Universal Studios. Being safe is usually a good thing, but not when it stops a ride dead in its tracks. Universal Rip Ride Rocket is one of the most exciting roller coasters, pairing a fast ride with a customizable soundtrack. But for 12 riders in 2019, it was a much longer ride than they expected. A computer glitch triggered the ride's safety mode, stopping the cars mid-ride and stranding the riders high in the air for 2 hours. They were eventually rescued from their cars, and hey, at least they weren't upside down in a loop when it stopped. Some crises take a lot longer to resolve, though. It was 2011, and Dudley Do-Right's Ripsaw Falls was sending riders down the log flume countless times a day, with a big splash each time. But it was supposed to be producing water, not fire. When black smoke started billowing from the attraction, Universal not only evacuated it, but the entire Toon Lagoon area, disappointing Popeye fans at the nearby River Rapids ride. While the area soon reopened, Dudley Do-Right's ride was seriously damaged and needed to be closed for several weeks, to which many visiting kids asked, "What's Dudley Do-Right?" At amusement parks, there are a lot of things that can go wrong, including at the restaurants. The Captain America Diner, where hungry amusement park guests can no doubt chow down on Star-Spangled Burgers, it's a relaxing part of the day. At least it usually is. But not for 3 workers in 2012. They started feeling ill during their shift, and after it seemed to be spreading, an ambulance was called in and the diner was closed for an investigation. The source of the illness? The refrigeration system was leaking, pumping a dangerous gas into the enclosed space. Truly a plot worthy of Red Skull. But sometimes food shows up where it's not supposed to be, even on rides. The Simpsons ride, one of the most popular motion simulators in the park, sends riders into the world of Springfield. But for some Florida guests in 2008, they got an unpleasant surprise worthy of a doe. They were riding the fast-moving ride when something in the system broke, and the guests suddenly got a face full of vegetable oil. Naturally, everyone was panicked, but thankfully the substance was non-toxic, and the guests were given a change of clothes and access to the showers. Sounds like they shouldn't let Homer run the safety systems. Some sprayed substances, though, can be more dangerous. It was one of the most highly anticipated debuts in Universal history, as the 1996 arrival of Jurassic Park: The Ride in Universal Studios Hollywood sent people into the world of one of the most popular movies of all time. But while guests were expecting a close-up encounter with dinosaurs, they weren't expecting a face full of hydraulic fluid. The source was a leak in the ride system's roof, and some people were hit with enough of the concentrated liquid that they went to the hospital for eye and skin irritation. At least it wasn't the Dilophosaurus spitting venom. But sometimes the problem isn't the ride, it's the guests. Universal wants you to enjoy yourself, but there are some rules. Namely, you can't bring your own alcohol into the premises. But when David J. Littlefield from New Jersey was spotted enjoying his Florida vacation a little too much, security stepped in to tell him to put it away. His response? "I'm a cop." He flashed a badge, became belligerent, and after he was arrested, the local police looked into his claim of being a law enforcement officer. Turns out the badge wasn't even his, it belonged to his brother. At Universal, things can get wet and wild. The opening of Volcano Bay gave Universal Orlando their first A-list water park and another way to compete with Disney. But their wild rides come with risk, as one family found out. The Makupuihi Round Raft ride sent people down a fast slide on an individual raft, but one girl fell off and got trapped under the raft. She nearly drowned and had to be taken to a nearby hospital to assess if she had suffered any brain damage. While she made a full physical recovery, her family sued the park in 2018. It wasn't the only time Volcano Bay got a little too close to danger. Water parks are complex places, combining modern effects with high-speed water rides. And when things go wrong, they can go very wrong. In 2019, employees started getting an unpleasant shock one day, literally as they got electric shocks when they touched certain parts of the ride. After it happened several times, the water park was shut down and evacuated, and the workers who had been hit with electricity were sent to the hospital. The company did a full investigation to find the source of the danger, because water and electricity can be a deadly combo. Sometimes getting in the water can be a bad thing. Anthony Salamone was looking forward to a Universal vacation with his family in 1990, but he wasn't expecting an up-close encounter with Jaws. The New Jersey man was riding the iconic shark-themed boat ride when he leaned against the railing, and it gave way, sending him into the water just as the giant audio-animatronic shark came roaring toward him. He was pulled back onto the boat by the staff, and the crowd clapped, thinking it was part of the ride. But Salamone wasn't as enthusiastic. He sued the park for $1 million for negligence. Amusement parks are fun when you get up close with scary things, but not too close. One of the oldest live shows at Universal, Universal's Horror Makeup Show, lets guests encounter some of the studio's scariest monsters. Lucky guests can even get on stage to participate in the show. But that was too much for one woman in 2002. She was selected to join the show only to be startled when one of the monsters got a little too close. She moved backwards, fell off the stage and onto the stairs, and had to be evacuated from the park with a head injury and a broken leg. The monsters, no doubt, were more upset than their movie counterparts would have been. Anytime you have a crowded park, things can go wrong, even the simplest things. Universal Studios Hollywood is a crowded park, and it's pretty common to see people packed on the escalators. These slow-moving transport devices aren't usually a source of any trouble. But in 2008, one packed escalator suddenly went into reverse, knocking people off balance and sending them falling down the stairwell. The source of the malfunction wasn't immediately known, but the escalator was stopped and 8 people were injured and sent to the hospital to be treated for minor injuries, and will no doubt take the stairs next time. And sometimes the park isn't even exactly sure what went wrong. E.T. Adventure is one of the park's most beloved rides, a slow-moving adventure on a bicycle to the lovable aliens' home planet. But in 1996, one man got all too close to phoning home permanently. The 28-year-old was getting on the ride, which started to lift off to begin its journey, when he suddenly fell at least 10 feet to the platform below. While he only suffered minor injuries to his elbow, he was taken to the hospital to be checked out, and Universal investigated the malfunction, only to come up empty, as the restraints seemed to be working properly. E.T. phone a mechanic? But at any amusement park, things can go very wrong. The most intense rides have a warning not to ride if you have health conditions, but not everyone with a weak heart knows it. Disney's Mission Space is notorious for people dying of heart conditions while on it, and at Universal, the most intense ride is the Incredible Hulk coaster. The fast-launching green roller coaster led to a woman named Leslie Killer being found unconscious after riding in 2003. She had suffered a massive heart attack while in her seat and was taken to the hospital where she died a few days later. But it's not always the wildest rides that can lead to unfortunate ends. Jose Calderon Arana was visiting Universal from Guatemala and rode the tram ride Skull Island Reign of Kong. The close-up encounter with the giant ape seemed to be too much for the man, as he claimed to feel ill after the ride. He went to a nearby bench to rest, and when his family came back, they were shocked to discover that he had a fatal heart attack. While it seemed to be a tragic accident and not the fault of the ride, which doesn't have much intense movement, the family sued the park because none of the warning signs were in Spanish. Sometimes the scariest thing at the park is the guests. Universal's Halloween Horror Nights is the premier Halloween event in Orlando, as countless guests line up for the after-hours festival of haunted houses. But 2 guests got a little too up close and personal with the scare actors. William Nunnally was exploring a Walking Dead haunted house and didn't like being scared, so he decided to punch one actor in the face. During the same event, one actor was performing as a clown on stilts when Carla Rondon Diaz decided it would be funny to try to knock him over. Both the Halloween hotheads were arrested and no doubt encountered scarier characters in the holding cells. And of course, when it comes to scary things, you can't account for nature. It was the most expensive attraction in Universal history at the time, Hagrid's Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure. The Harry Potter-themed ride let people encounter unicorns and 3-headed dogs, but one day it was undone by a much more mundane creature, bees. A swarm of honeybees decided to make the coaster their home and kept coming back around the tracks. The coaster had to be closed repeatedly, adding to the many technical issues it had since its opening, and making many insectophobes think twice about riding. But Hagrid's predecessor was responsible for far more chaos. Opening as Dueling Dragons before becoming the Harry Potter-themed Dragon Challenge, the A-list coaster at Universal Orlando was known for its 2 fast-moving dragon-themed coasters that came within inches of each other. But these tight quarters made the ride dangerous right from the start. In 2009, a worker was testing the attraction before opening it for the day when he was hit in the head by the passing coaster and knocked unconscious. The man was taken to the hospital unresponsive and died shortly after. It wouldn't be the only time the coaster wound up in the news for the wrong reasons. Dragon Challenge was notorious for whipping its riders around, and that led to some stray objects flying around in dangerous ways. When a man was hit in the eye by a loose object while riding the coaster, he lost the eye, and the coaster fans started wondering if it was time to put the dragons out to pasture. When it happened again less than a month later, Universal eliminated the dueling element of the ride entirely, and the coaster limped to the finish line before being replaced several years later. But one incident rallied all of Orlando. It was September 30th, 2016 in the early morning when Universal Studios Florida was hit by a massive blackout. It wasn't a larger scale event hitting all of Orlando, but seemed to be localized. While most rides could be evacuated quickly, guests were trapped in the Men in Black and Transformers rides and needed to be evacuated by the fire department. But oddly, the sister park, Island of Adventure, was unaffected, and 2 Universal rides stayed running during the blackout. It was a weird and confusing incident that the Universal investigation initially couldn't solve. But one incident made national news and nearly ruined a beloved attraction. It was the sleepiest ride at Universal but became a fan favorite, the Hogwarts Express, a slow-moving train ride filled with special effects and would take Harry Potter fans from one park's Potterland to the other just like in the books. But one visiting guest had a distinctly unmagical object on him, an e-cigarette that exploded, creating a fireball. It hit the teenage girl across from him, causing mild burns to her face, while setting his pants on fire, stopped the train in its tracks, and led to a police investigation. Can you say expecto lawsuit? For more on Florida's craziest theme park incidents, check out totally messed up things that have happened at Walt Disney World, or watch the worst amusement park ride disasters for just how bad it can get.